Welcome back to Your Voice at the IMO. This week we've had the 13th session of the IMO's Pollution Prevention and Response meeting. A lot of interesting discussions about exhaust gas systems, about various aspects of sewage treatment plants. And to help me navigate through this on your behalf as members, I've had a very experienced master mariner, Nigel Budd. Nigel, thank you so much for joining us
Sure.
today.
Yeah.
Just start off, if you would, tell us a little bit about your career. Tell us about you.
Well, just over 53 years ago, I went on a school cruise on a ship called the Navassa, which is British India, and I saw the cadets on board having such a great time. I thought I'll have a bit of that. So I went back to school, was in the second year of doing A-levels, and it wasn't going very well. So I left school, applied to go to sea with Shell tankers as a cadet. And exactly 53 years ago, I got on a train today to go down to Plymouth to start a 2-week induction course to start my seagoing career.
So happy anniversary in that case.
Thank you very much.
And what a way to celebrate it coming to the IMO. So what have you done throughout that 53 years?
Yeah, well, the first 5 years I stayed with Shell, and the cadetship was very exciting. I went on product tankers, gas tankers, crude oil tankers, and a bitumen tanker twice. And it doesn't sound very glamorous, but lots of little ports, unusual places. I've crossed the Pacific 4 times before I was 18 years old.
Wow.
And so it was a real eye-opener, and I came on after that first 4 months, and I didn't have a less in common with my friends than I did. You'd really grow up. And I went and I passed my certificates first time. And when I was in my last phase at college, I was with lots of RFA cadets, and they were really having a good time. They were telling sea tales of, runs ashore and all the mischief they got up to. And I thought, well, sounds good. So I went to sea as qualified officer watch, and I went on 2 VLCCs. The first one was a brand new ship called the Leonia, which was 330,000 tons or something, brand new from Harland and Wolff. And it was really exciting. The first bit, this massive ship, 350 meters long and 40 meters, 50 meters wide. And I thought, this is amazing. But it quickly got very boring, because you spend 2 weeks on the same course. Very often you don't see another ship for 3 or 4 days because you're well off the coast and there's no time in port, and you never break watches, and it got boring and lonely. So as soon as I left the second ship, I resigned, and then I applied to join the RFA.
Brilliant.
Now, the Royal Fleet Auxiliary, as you know, is a supply arm for the Royal Navy, supplying fuel stores, ammunition, troop carriers, etc. But it's more than that. It's a way of life, and it's a variety, and it's a huge culture of camaraderie and fun. And I joined, and I welcomed it wholeheartedly. I had great fun, really. My first ship was a training ship used for training at Flag Officer Sea Training, called the Gold Rover, which only went out of service a few years ago. That was in 1978, and that was good fun. And then I went on from there to promoted straight away to second officer almost, and a variety of ships all through my career.
Brilliant. So you've spent that career on the receiving end of IMO regulations.
Absolutely, yeah.
What motivated you to come to the IMO as a volunteer delegate this week?
Well, I think it was you, really. You sold. We had a meeting back in October, and you did your piece on the IMO and what they did, and I thought that sounds really interesting. I thought, yes, I can contribute to that. And you mentioned you welcome volunteer delegates, and you don't pay them or anything, but I felt it's an opportunity to put something back as well.
And I'm very grateful for what you're doing. So how did you prepare for this meeting?
Well, basically, I read the notes that you sent me. You sent me lots of copious briefing notes on all the agenda items and what was going to come up, and what the procedures were, how you came in, all the rest. So I read through that, lots of it on the train on the way up, of course. And then I, met you at the foyer and went on from there. It was fairly straightforward, I thought.
And you've brought a lot of experience with you, and particularly you've tapped me on the shoulder a couple of times during the meeting. We've had a couple of discussions to clarify the Nautical Institute's view. How do you see that experience benefiting the IMO?
Well, you realise there's a huge arena there with, hundreds of people in there, it's sort of 50 metres wide and about 30 or 40 metres deep, and you can see all the delegates from all the different countries sitting there. And you realise that all the agenda items that come up, you're actually quite an expert. And all of these, in your career, you've dealt with the regulations, you've dealt with the practicalities, you've dealt with the difficulties, and you know sometimes more about it than anyone else in the room.
And if I may, you have on a couple of occasions.
Yeah.
You tapping me in the shoulder about sewage record books, which was a very no cargo record books, cargo record books, which was very helpful for me. So as you walked into that room, what were your first impressions?
It was just the scale of the operation, really. You look up and you could see the simultaneous translators there from Russian and English and French and Spanish, and you realise, what the scale and the skill of the people there. And when people start speaking, you realise that they are diplomats. It's very formal language, very controlled. They're saying exactly what they want to say. And includes all nations. There's Iranians and Russians and all sorts, and they've all got their bit to add because they're all seafaring nations.
Yeah. So, were your expectations met? A lot of people have got that view as they're standing on the bridge of their ship of the IMO. Another circular comes out, another code comes out. Having now spent a week there, have your expectations been met or adjusted?
I think they did, partly because of your briefing, but my time at sea, I didn't realise things took quite as long, because as you said, could be 6 years for a new piece of legislation from birth to fruition to come through, and it takes a long time to go. So that was a surprise, when I got there. But you realise why it takes so much time and the broad agreement you've got to reach.
So do you now understand why it takes so long? And bearing in mind this is your voice at the IMO, is there a kind of a message that you feel we need to be getting out there to seafarers to help them understand that better?
I'm not sure it would make a difference, but what we can do is inform the debate better, but put in the practical seafarer's point of view and the depth of knowledge that we have. They may suggest things, and you can straight away see that this may have unintended consequences.
That's a beautifully polite way of phrasing it. Unintended consequences. I love that bit. Did it surprise you, the variety of experiences of the people in the room? And you've certainly over coffee, you've met quite a few of those other delegates.
Indeed, I didn't expect people like paint coatings and the ITF to be there, and the Friends of the Earth, all the ecological organisations, and it was great to have that specific coastline organisation, all these people like that, and I didn't realise that they were there and contributing to the debate.
Yeah. So you've met all these people now. You're obviously going to go back to your branch down on the south coast. How do you think being at the IMO is going to benefit you?
I think it's just a broader understanding of our profession, really, and I think how things work. We all just understand it at the worker level, but the overarching sort of strategic push for the way things happen, I think that's given me a much broader understanding of it and the basis of why some of the regulations come out and how they are amended to keep everyone happy.
And in that amendments process, we've got that seafarer voice there. We try and be that voice of the seafarer. How important do you think that seafaring voice is?
It's absolutely vital because, legislation could, they could spend 6 years on a piece of legislation, bring it out, and it could be totally impractical because a seafarer could say, ooh, straight away, that's not going to work, or it's going to cost you a lot of money because of the way ships are designed, the way seafarers are qualified, the way seafarers think. And you also, when you've been doing it for 45, 50 years, you realise there's no reinventing the wheel. Well, you try to reinvent the wheel. You've seen the problems before, and they're trying to repeat the same problems.
Have you seen any of that this week?
No, a little bit with the coatings, the anti-fouling coatings. You can see that I'm aware that they changed the regulations quite a few years ago and removed lots of toxic substances from them to make them kinder to the environment. But they can't be completely kind to the environment because they've got to kill barnacles and bugs, you know. It's,
I know you very kindly went off when I stayed in plenary. You went off to the working group to go through that. Can you talk me through? Because I know you said you managed to raise a couple of interesting points there for them.
well, there was a group of about 40 broke off to form a working group, and that will go on for quite some time. So I dipped into it for a few hours, but they were talking about they called it a goals-based approach. So the goal was this: the goal was to stop invasive species being transferred from one place in the world to another with great harm. We've been trying to sort that out with ballast for years. But you can see the unintended consequences if you you use really strong coatings to kill the barnacles. How does that affect the environment elsewhere? And that was my contribution to it. And they noted it down. So and then the paint coatings people came across to have a word with me and told me how safe their products were. But of course they would.
Yes. and it's that kind of voice which I think is really helpful. Do you think that's kind of just nudged the dial a little bit at the IMO?
Yeah, I think a tiny bit. But when it's a 6-year program, if you can just change one word because of our contribution to it, it is worthwhile.
I remember you coming back briefing me and saying actually they were discussing, I think, 2 words, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. Yes, shall and should.
Which unfortunately are incredibly important words there. So I sense you've enjoyed your week. What do you think is going to be your greatest memory?
I think it's just seeing the scale of things, but I was quite amused when I was looking up at the English interpreters there, and one was speaking quite, simultaneous translate, but one was talking quietly into the micro, and the other was just about in view, if you look very carefully, but she was so animated, she was speaking with passion as she translated it, using her hands, of course, to a microphone. And I was just amused because I thought that was great to see.
And the interpreters do an absolutely amazing job. Was again that one of your points of surprise?
It was, yeah. How they work these simultaneous translators, and they're doing it in several languages, Spanish and French and everything else,
So you've come as a volunteer expert delegate for the Institute.
Mm-hmm.
Why did you join the Institute in the first place?
I can't remember exactly. I got my master's certificate, and I remember seeing, we can join the Institute with the master, and I thought that looks interesting. So I've done all sorts with the Institute over the years. I've been on council. I've been in the nominations committee for quite a few years, and now I head the nominations committee. So I find that quite enjoyable.
Oh, brilliant! And in terms of our future contribution at the IMO as an institute, you've now seen it, you've been a senior member of our executive, you've seen it now as an IMO delegate. How do you think we should proceed forward in terms of enhancing our reputation, enhancing our representation?
I think increase the use of the volunteer delegates. The more people you can, and the more viewpoints that we can bring to the delegations there, the more better we will do it, we'll better inform the legislations being produced. You can't have too many viewpoints of a subject.
Which is great. So is there a kind of a message to members that you as a senior member would push out there?
I would say go along. It's great fun. Go along to the IMO, contact yourself and volunteer as a delegate. It's a few days out of your leave or out of your retirement time, and it's great.
If I may, that's great actually, because we do have our volunteer expert delegate scheme, how we recruited you in, and thank you again. And if I may, you have been absolute gold dust for me on a couple of occasions this week. Certain things have gone outside of my experience. We share experience, and yours is sometimes different. So please accept my very sincere thanks, because genuinely this has been a really fun week for me. And I think we have moved the dial in a few small areas to the benefit of seafarers. So, Nigel, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you. Yeah.